Hey everybody, this is Mark Murray Aviation Services. Thought I'd maybe take a few moments here and show you a few features about the Challenger Light Sport Special, the LSS they call it. A little bit of a rarity in the Challenger world. You hear or see of them now and then, but I thought I'd give you a few ideas about their features. Okay, so here she is, brand new Light Sport Special. Actually, I believe the kit, I want to say, is about 12-15 years old, but was just recently finished. And in case you don't know, the Light Sport Special came out about 2005 when the Light Sport rule was brand new, and I guess the idea for Quad City was they wanted to have an airplane that was right for the times. Their models already fit the category perfectly, but I guess like everybody else, they wanted to have something that proclaimed it was light sport. So this is what they did, and it's a nice airplane. It's not a bad airplane. While they were at it, what they tried to do was deal with some of the issues or complaints or just things that have been brought up over the years, and I guess for some pilots maybe they accomplished that somewhat. Well, let me show you a few of the details. One of the first things you notice about an LSS is the vertical tail, how large it is compared to the other classic Challengers. It was not the only attempt that Challenger made at a larger vertical surface, but this is the one that really sets the LSS apart. Usually you will see it either with the rounded off or the squared off vertical stabilizer. And it was one of the issues where some guys didn't like the somewhat lack of yaw stability. So this was a way to deal with that. Maybe the second most noticeable item on a LSS is the solid landing gear. So they got away from the aluminum or fiberglass legs and cables to a solid leg with, by the way, a solid weldment. I don't know if you can see it in this video, it goes all the way across. And a solid leg which is hidden inside this cover. And it does clean it up quite a bit. It's a cleaner system, less drag. Everybody's got their preferences. I kind of prefer the original system. I believe ultimately the original system is just fine. It's easier to maintain and repair. Basically, there isn't a whole lot to repair with this system. Once it's damaged, you've got a big issue. But we'll see. It's a nice system. I do not like the covers, and the covers are nice and clean, but it's basically a solid fiberglass tube. The cover is just a fiberglass tube, and to remove it you'd have to remove the wheel unless you made some kind of inspection report. Not too crazy about that. Some of the less notable features or noticeable features are the fact that the LSS has standard with bottom wing ribs. Again, nice, not necessary, but nice feature. The ailerons are different in that they are shorter but also wider. I think it's like an inch wider in chord for the aileron. They did away with the little triangulated diagonal piece here. And although you can't see it, this was back when they first started introducing the differential aileron system, where one aileron does not go down quite as much as the other one comes up. Another notable difference about the LSS is the wingtip itself. I have not yet built a wing with the more standard fiberglass wingtips, but I believe that there is a little bit more material out here on this wingtip than the earlier classics with the fiberglass wingtip. You have an added aluminum piece here. You have a little bit more aluminum here. A fair amount of structure out here on the wingtip of this wing. Definitely different than the earlier bow tips. Fairly heavy wing. I'm currently working on a long wing, and it's surprising how much heavier this wing is than that long wing with the original bow. Also, by the way, they introduced a new leading edge wrap. So originally the leading edge wrap would Basically go from here to a point back here. Now they sort of have a channel. I don't know how well you can see it. A channel that goes all the way down. So you have spar, fabric, wrap, and then fabric again. And I kind of like that feature. I thought it was a very nice, clean way of providing what's more or less a solid leading edge if that's what you're after. One feature I really did like on this project was that they changed the top of the fuselage here. I know you really can't see it, but this area right in here is wider. Makes it easier to work on everything. You don't have to worry so much about how close your flapper-on push tubes are to the structure. One difference, and I could not find anything in the instructions about it, was I added a tube to run down the side here, so that the fabric would be a little bit tighter in this area, and it also worked out nicely with the door. You know, a lot of times you'll see where guys kind of bow the side of the fuselage out to meet the door. Well, this is similar in that the door is still out here, but it doesn't have to tuck in quite as far to meet this tube. So that was one feature I like. I also like the LSS does have the higher sides, but they changed it somewhat. This is not exactly the same height as the other high sides, but I like it. The more I fly Challenger to high sides, the more I like it. It makes the placement of the throttle and such much cleaner. And lastly, on the LSS, they went to a heavier 1/8 inch rudder cable. Now, you may be thinking, well, I've seen all this on the XS models that came later, and that's true. A lot of this was carried on to the XS and the ES models. So there you have it. Let me show you a few features about this aircraft that were also added into the project. So for a little background, this airplane had already been started by another party, and basically they had got to the point where the 17-gallon aluminum tank was installed, the panel was installed, some of the wiring, and they had started covering the tail surfaces and the ailerons. Then they abandoned the project and it sat for quite a while. So I took it over, redid the wiring, redid some of the plumbing, redid the panel somewhat, and finished assembly, redid the windshield. A couple of features about the windshield. Don't beat me up too much on all of these rivets in the windshield. The nose was already drilled for all this, so I just left it. That's about twice as many rivets as anyone would ever need. Maybe if we went a couple 100 miles an hour, we'd need these many rivets, but anyhow, that's all about. Went ahead and the owner requested a nose hatch. We got that covered. We wanted to make sure we were able to get in and out of this airplane pretty easily, so we made sure we did what they called a third door or the hinged windshield. This is sort of a custom deal, whereas I wanted to make sure that plenty of leg room was available for getting in and out. So simply just added a little fiberglass flange here after I cut this out to give the door something to rest against, and we have just a little standard Quad City latch there. Came out pretty nice. You may have noticed that the fuselage side also looks a little different right here. It's just something I like to do on Challengers. I add a 1/2 inch tube stringer down the side just under the strut here, just to hold the fabric away, give it a little bit cleaner look on the side. I stopped this one short of the landing gear. I think on my next one I may try to run it a little bit past, see if I can smooth up some of that fabric back there toward beyond the strut. Let's see, we have our good old Amazon tail lights. I don't know if you can see that. We use them also for our tip lights and navigation lights. We just use that for a tail light. And what's really cool about these is they're programmable for different flash patterns. Let's see, we've got the aluminum Shear Technologies, I believe Shear Technologies supplies that, the aluminum oil tank. We have the rear starter, which is nice. I like the rear starter. I'd hate to have to pull that rear pulley off to get to the flywheel, but as long as all that works, that's a nice deal. Rear starter allows you to maintain the pull start, which is nice. Let's see, we have a fuel drain for the aluminum tank. It's a nice feature. All tanks should have some type of drain, at least some kind of way of checking it for water or contaminants at some point or regular basis. Another thing the original builder did was installed this baggage compartment, and we went back and forth whether or not to keep it. We finally decided to, instead of tearing all that structure out, to keep it, and it was a hassle to cover. I will not be doing that again. That was a lot of work to cover that one little door, but in the end I think he'll have some use for it. Maybe keep some oil or whatever back there. Another feature, we've got the swivel tail wheel, and we have the small strut covers. This also an option for the Challenger. Have the strut covers on the jury struts as well. For a parachute, we went with the Magnum BRS, sold by You Fly It, Magnum Parachutes instead of BRS. This was my first Magnum on a Challenger. I've done several BRS type shoots on other Challengers and a Magnum on an Aerolite, but this was the first one on a Challenger. And let me tell you, it's very, very similar to the BRS, but there's a couple of things you need to notice different. This rocket is further down into the wing, and you're going to have to make sure that your structure can clear this rocket. It took a little while to get that sorted out, but in the end it came out pretty good. Other than that, pretty much the whole thing went together like a BRS. And lastly, in case you were wondering what this little doohickey is, well, you know every plane has to have one. That's right. Yep, we gotta have our horns. All right, well, hope you enjoyed. Just learned a little bit about the LSS. Nice flying airplane. You guys take care.